Hey guys, it's Alexa, and you're watching Titanic. These discoveries are the kinds of stories you imagine that tales like Indiana Jones are based on, except for the fact they all happen under the water. Wouldn't it be amazing to attribute these finds to mermaid kingdoms? But sadly, that's just not the case. They were all once bustling cities that befell terrible times that caused their underwater demise. We're going under the surface today to figure out what happened to those once thriving places. Port Royal, Jamaica. If it's a story you're after, then this is the perfect place to begin. Pirates, booze, ladies of the night, and around-the-clock parties, Port Royal was once considered the most wicked and sinful city in the world. Some might view that slightly differently and consider it the most fun, but we digress. June 1692 saw all that change when an earthquake with a magnitude of 7.5 struck and literally caused that entire city to collapse due to the unstable foundations. Over 2,000 citizens did not make it, and some like to strike fear into others by saying it was due to their sinful ways that the town was swallowed up by the ocean. Over time, the city has kept sinking and now lies 40 feet below the ocean. Archaeological exploration is prevalent in the area, and people are still finding bits and pieces from that bygone time. Point Fermin, Los Angeles. Not so much an entire sunken city, but rather a few homes. It was during the 1920s that there was quite an influx of people to San Pedro in Los Angeles, where many new homes were being built on the perch of the cliff edge of Point Fermin. The developer had no idea how intense the waves crashing against the rocks could be, and a slow-moving landslide ensued. Due to the long time it took to slide, residents were able to flee unharmed, but 2 houses landed up in the ocean. You can still go and check out the remnants of roads and some house foundations peeking their heads above the water. Cleopatra's Kingdom, Alexandria, Egypt. Lost from the world for 1,600 years was the royal quarters of Cleopatra, which were discovered by Frenchman Frank Goddio and his team of marine archaeologists in 1998. The team were excavating the underwater city, which had piqued Godillo's interest after reading about this city in works by a Greek historian named Strabo. It's believed that the city fell victim to an earthquake and tsunami a few centuries after she had departed. Their efforts were rewarded by so many artifacts largely intact. Among their many finds, there were the foundations of the palace, impressive statues of the goddess Isis, and a sphinx, shipwrecks, and red granite columns. There are plans to build an underwater museum, but to date, nothing has happened in that line. The Pyramids of Yonaguni, Jima, Japan. The verdict is out on this underwater monument, with some believing that it's completely man-made, while others believe it to be a natural occurrence. There are certain pieces of evidence that lean toward the monument being a natural occurrence, but the terraced stones and triangular shapes keep the verdict from being confirmed. The monument is 250 feet high from the sea floor and is an incredible place for divers to explore. If the monument was made by man, those in the know suggest it was built during the last ice age, which would have been around 10,000 BC. Phanagoria, Russia and Greece. What was always deemed as a bit of fiction, a myth, or hearsay became the truth when Phanagoria made itself known to divers. Roman history tells the tale of a massive uprising in 63 BC when huge parts of the ancient city were burnt to the ground by a furious mob who then took the lives of the wife and kids of Mithridates VI. There was no evidence to suggest this was real until those divers found a gravestone in the waters of Phanagoria, which is now Sonoy in Krasnodar Krai, Russia. The gravestone read, Hypsicrates, wife of Mithridates VI. She was referred to in the masculine form by her husband, as she was bold, courageous, and a true leader. The area has been called the Russian Atlantis, and many artifacts, bases of statues, and marble plinths have been discovered. Phanagoria was a bustling city for 1,500 years before it was abandoned in the 10th century. No one really knows why the people left, and excavating the area has been time-consuming as most of the city is covered up with 7 meters of sand. Dunnage Suffolk. You'd never guess that this quaint little seaside village in the UK was once the unofficial capital of East Angles and a major trading port too. Come the 11th century, it was the 10th largest town in England. By 1225, it was home to 8 churches, 3 chapels, 2 hospitals, a mint, and a guild hall. A massive storm hit the area in 1286, and repeated storms thereafter battered and eroded the coastline, which meant that they lost their harbor. You can understand that it was an economic tragedy for the town. By 1338, the town was deserted. The town has been gulped up by the ocean over the centuries, but you can still see the Franciscan friary known as the Grey Friars today. Acoustic imaging has brought forward images of medieval buildings, the ruins of several churches, and a number of shipwrecks. Bay of Cambay, India. A rather recent discovery occurred in 2002 when marine scientists were thrilled to discover that located 120 feet underwater in the Gulf of Cambay was a city measuring 5 miles long and 2 miles wide. It's believed to be 9,500 years old, and even more thrilling was that architectural and human remains are still intact. To add to the coup of the discovery is that this predates any other finds in the area by 5,000 years, meaning that civilization was there for a lot longer than previously thought. The reason for the city being submerged is thought to have been caused by the melted ice caps from the last ice age. The locals have called the area Dwarka, which means the Golden City. Lion City of Qingdao Lake, China. It's easy to see why this has been called the most spectacular underwater city in the world. This surreal area was built sometime between 25 and 200 CE and spans the area of 62 football fields. Your jaw will drop when you realize why it ended up underwater. It was intentionally flooded in the 1950s to make way for a power station. It seems that people then forgot about Lion City until it was rediscovered by divers. Below the surface, you'll find paved roads, memorial arches, white temples, houses, and staircases. It's like a perfectly intact time capsule. There are plans to bring tourists in to be able to dive the area safely, which will give the area a much-needed financial boost. Baiae, Bacoli, Italy. This was the place to be seen in the years 100 BC to 500 AD, where the super rich would spend their days in luxurious villas. It was thought to be more fashionable than Pompeii, Herculaneum, and Capri, and maybe that's because the party was always happening there. Saracens invaded the city in the 8th century. By 1500 it was abandoned, and water levels slowly rose, engulfing what was left of the city. The remains that survive today include ornate statues, a network of roads, beautiful marble floors, and exquisite mosaics. Pavlopetri, Greece. It's been home to the fish for around 5,000 years. This is Pavlopetri, one of the oldest submerged cities in the world. Nicholas Fleming made this discovery in 1967, and it's believed that earthquakes were the cause of this city being submerged for all eternity. It was a cultural hub of ancient Greece, and it was an archaeologist's dream to discover buildings, streets, tombs, courtyards, and surreal artifacts. This once thriving harbor town is protected by the UNESCO Convention on the Protection of Underwater Cultural Heritage. Kekova, Turkey. It's been called by many different names, Karavola, Dolakist, and Kekova, but they all refer to the same spot. And it's this small island in Turkey where you can still see the sunken remains of Dolakist. This ancient town was the victim of an earthquake sometime in the 2nd century, but rebuilt during the Byzantine period. Residents were subjected to Arab invasions, so it was eventually abandoned. Swimming used to be allowed in the area, but people were stealing pieces of the city left behind, and that was quickly banned. Turkey has applied to have the area protected as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, but they're still waiting for confirmation. Atlit Yam, Israel. Archaeologist Ehud Galilee had the best day of his life back in 1984 when he discovered Atlit Yam, considered the earliest evidence of agro-pastoral marine subsistence system on the Levantine coast. It's old, between 8,900 and 8,300 years old, and lies submerged below 25 to 40 feet of water. It spans across 10 acres, and discoveries have been plentiful, including houses, hearth places, a well, burial areas, and the creme de la creme, 2 skeletons, a woman and a small child, showing the earliest case of tuberculosis that we know of. Thonis, Heraklion, Egypt. The Greeks called it Heraklion, and the ancient Egyptians called it Thonis. Together they form, you guessed it, Thonis Heraklion. This was one of the most important port cities in the Med, and it's been lying underwater for 1,200 years and has a load of secrets it can't wait to share. This area used to be the official port of entry for Egypt and is now roughly 4 miles from the current coastline. The water has preserved many of the artifacts very well, and divers are bringing up a vast array of treasures, from anchors, coins, pieces of shipwrecks, tablets bearing Greek and Egyptian inscriptions, sculptures, and statues of more than 16 feet tall. The shipwrecks have puzzled researchers, as it has the highest number of shipwrecks found in one place, totaling 64. The exact cause of the city sinking is unknown, but it's thought to have been because of an earthquake, combined with the unstable clay and sand foundations. The discovery can be attributed to, again, Dr. Frank Godillo, who was looking for sunken French fighting vessels. Gran and Reschen, South Tyrol, Italy. A little like Lion City we mentioned earlier, Gran and Reschen were flooded on purpose. The towns were torn down before any water touched the surface, and despite protests by civilians, the need for power, and we mean power to run households, won. 163 houses were demolished, and all that you can see now is the bell tower of Gran's 14th century church. Diving in the area won't reap too many exciting finds, but what will totally make up for it is if you visit the area in winter, when the lake freezes over and you can take a walk right up to the tower for the perfect photo opportunity. Atlantis, Libya, and Asia. This could be your turn to become one of the key figures in our history books by going out and discovering Atlantis. Many have tried and failed, but you could be the lucky one. The lost city of Atlantis myth has been around since Plato wrote about it in a book, where he says that it's an island that's bigger than Libya and Asia combined and is located at the entrance to the Mediterranean Sea. Plato describes that the Atlanteans were greedy, morally corrupt, and tried to invade Athens but were unsuccessful. Then a natural disaster consumed the area within a day. There are many theories of where it really is, but until it's actually found, we'll never really know. We hope that you enjoyed today's video. Which one of these cities would you have loved to have seen before they fell into the ocean? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to leave a like and subscribe to our channel for more daily content.